Hey y'all, it's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I am back here with the review to the latest episode of Black Lightning. It is episode 2 of the first season, which was called LaWanda, A Book of Hope. And LaWanda was a girl. And I say was, unfortunately, because she is no longer here. So, if I had a 40, I'd pour one out for LaWanda. A lot of people died in this episode. Like, a lot of people died when you think about it. This was quite literal. I mean, this Black Lightning Black lipstick was, also an in memoriam lipstick, apparently, for all the people who did not make it out of this episode. And like, already, just to start off by saying that tells you the type of episode, or kind of, not the episode, the type of show this is going to be. Like, episode 1 already very much showed that this was not going to be your typical CW superhero show. But this episode in particular really brought it home that this is going to be a very real show in just about every aspect, except for the fact that that a man can shoot lightning out of his hands and his daughter can like throw people with super strength, right? So this show, man, it's going to tackle a lot of hard and interesting issues, but I like the way they're doing it. They're doing it in a very realistic way, and it feels real and it feels natural, but it doesn't feel too heavy-handed. And that's what I like so far about it, is that whenever you don't go into this territory, you got to make sure you don't venture too deep and too dark, because obviously we live this every day, right? We know, we turn on the news, we know there are people in this world who live this literally every day, and usually these types of shows are kind of an escape or a respite from that. But it's still nice to have this realistic environment to understand why Black Lightning decided to use his powers the way that he did. And clearly, it kind of gives you a good idea of where perhaps the origins of this character came from. How many people would love to have someone who could actually fight for the underdogs in these neighborhoods that are being run by people like Tobias, these drug lords or slum lords, right? So anyway, kind of went off on a tangent there, but just still reeling for the realness of that episode. It was some next level stuff as far as being real, but really good. So there's a lot to talk about. Like I have a lot of notes here, so I'm just gonna jump right in. So this video isn't like a 3-year thing. Terminology. There was a lot of Black terminology that was dropped in this episode that you typically, again, rarely see outside of BET. We had Tobias talking about darkies. Like, what? And I mean, yes, I made the joke in the video about how, like, him being an albino, but it wasn't about that. It was really about him understanding, and that I think Lala tried to bring it out a little bit, but the fact that he is literally making his empire and growing rich on the backs, quite literally, of his own people. And then he went on to say something along the lines of like, guys like Lala are looking, making him look like we're like Black people, a bunch of newly freed slaves. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. And I mean, this is all like, this is rhetoric that has actually been discussed in the Black community in many ways. And look, I'm just going to say just as a caveat, I'm Canadian. So in Canada, there is not the same elements of the Black communities that are in Canada, which there aren't big ones like there are compared to the States. We didn't quite go through the exact same thing that a lot of American Blacks have gone through. And so my experience growing up, like, my parents were not from the States. My parents are Caribbean. They grew up in the Caribbean. They moved to Canada. That's where I was born. And I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. Like, I had a very suburban life. So I don't have the frame of reference from living it. I've been exposed to a lot of Black programming, and I understand that, these issues that exist in these Black communities that have so many things that create places that are like Friedland, right? With having the drugs and the prostitution and people who are running this underbelly of crime that are so powerful that even the authorities don't really do anything or can't do anything to stop it. And these communities feeling helpless because they can't really leave because sometimes they can't afford to go anywhere else, or they just don't know any better, right? So seeing Tobias actually bring that up and talk about the fact that he's perfectly aware of the fact that he's oppressing his fellow man to get rich, and then having the nerve to say that, oh, people like Lala, because they're not aspiring to be crime lords like him or not in his level, that they're somehow not as good as he is. You know, this is a huge issue in the Black community with some people thinking that they're better than others because of either the money that they have or because they have better education, not recognizing that it has nothing to do with, you know, where you went to school or how much money you have in your pocket. You know, the sum of a person is the kind of person that they are and what they do in this world and how they contribute to this life. And so anyways, that was a really deep topic. I mean, it was really just kind of like they just kind of skated on the top of it, because obviously that issue could spiral on forever. But I was really shocked that they dropped that in a CW show. I don't think we've ever had them on any show go to that level to talking about it. And then Uncle Tom too, we had the police chief talking about how LaWanda called him Uncle Tom. I'm like, woo, they are just bringing out all of our like, next thing we're going to see in next episode, and they're going to be showing like how people put in weaves. They're going to be showing, you know, how girls getting their hair fresh. Like, all the Black secrets are about to come out, y'all. Like, we might have to show up in the CW writing room and be like, listen, y'all, like, we appreciate what you're doing with the show, for real. We love it. But you got to leave us a little mystery, okay? Just Just make sure you stay away from certain Black secrets that do not need to be publicized just yet, okay? They're going in. They are going in. And it's good. It's good. I like it because for those, I mean, for the Black community that watches it, it's obviously going to be relatable. And for those who maybe didn't grow up with it, it's still something that is understandable. And I really like the fact that I watched a lot of reactions to like other reactors reacting to this show, and I was really happy to see that there was quite a few non-Black people who are watching this show. And while I heard some people say they couldn't really relate, it's a good educational piece, because that's something that will help people who don't get it. You know, Black Lightning is exposing a lot of issues that people who aren't Black or haven't grown up in those areas just can't understand and can't relate to. But they're like, we're trying to educate you as to what's going on here. We're not judging, we're not pointing fingers, we're just saying, here it is. And we're putting it in a world that's a little bit fantastical, so it's a little less intense, but hopefully some knowledge and some understanding will filter through that. And so I respect that, and I really like that the writers are taking it there. But it is dark and it is heavy. There's no doubt about that. The deep vigilante questions. I really appreciated that moment where LaWanda stood up and said in front of everybody, how come Black Lightning went to the Seahorse Hotel and rescued your daughters but left all the other girls that were in there? Crickets, right? She asked a very, very important question that I think more superhero shows should probably ask. The same way with Superman, always tended to, you know, he always rescued Lois Lane wherever she was, but maybe not necessarily everybody else. And, you know, the Flash always seems to find Iris. It's a good question, right? And again, it really drove home why what Lynn, who's Jefferson's ex-wife, why she can't, like, why her argument for why he should stop doing it kind of had holes poked in it, right? I mean, we'll get into Lynn and Jefferson in a minute, but that kind of poked a big hole in her theory about how, you know, she was fine with him going to rescue the girls and using his powers to do that, but then he's supposed to pull back and be normal. And it doesn't work that way, because again, these are the kind of questions that will come up. So why is this person with powers and the ability to help more people only helping people that he can? How does that make him any better than the people that are hurting people, right? Because if you have the power to help people on a bigger scale, then why wouldn't you? Like, does LaWanda's daughter mean less than his daughter just because it's not his blood? Like, those are the deep moral questions that every, you know, superhero has to think about. And I haven't seen a lot of shows that have really tackled that. And I think that's because, you know, with Arrow and The Flash, they're very much like mostly The Flash, you know, they're very goody-goody, and of course they're going to go out and rescue everybody. But it's a really deep question to ask for those who don't want to get into that business or want to keep their powers to themselves. Like, what's the cost of that, and can I live with it? And am I okay with only rescuing people that I care about versus rescuing more people because I have that capacity? So I love that they asked it. It's a deep question, and I don't think I've ever seen it be addressed in a comic series like this before. So kudos to the writers for throwing that in. Going on a little bit to talk quickly about Jen and her spiral at the moment. I mean, I get it. She's supposed to be the wild child. She's clearly the rebel out of the two girls. I'm still thinking though, I mean, this isn't just to do with what happened with her getting kidnapped and the whole situation with her rebellion leading to some pretty terrible things. She looks like she was kind of looking to rebel before this, like she didn't like having to be the good girl. You know, we saw her argue about that with her sister last episode. You know, why do I gotta go to school and run track and be an example? Maybe I want to do my own thing. And I love that moment with her new boyfriend, who is fine, by the way. That boy is so cute. I love the fact that he brought out to her, like, listen, you think you've got some first world problems right here because you don't want to be a good person with a good education, with a bright future. You know, he's like, I have problems. You know, he talked about his mama is working 3 jobs, his brother's in jail, his daddy's dead. Like, he's like, I should be the one who's like you. I should be the one drinking and getting high and losing my mind and running with Lala and those people because I am the textbook. But I realize that's not going to, you know, what good is that? You know, I'm going to use the means that I do have, which in his case, he's clearly an athlete. I'm getting out of here. So it's like, in your case, like, girl, instead of sitting here and destroying yourself for what? You know, obviously she needs to either figure out what it is she does want and voice that to her parents. Because I don't get the sense that Jefferson would tell her she couldn't pursue whatever her dream is as long as she has something to do other than drink and get high. But just this little mini rebellion that's basically all about hurting herself, really, just makes no sense. And so I'm really glad that this boyfriend is kind of there to be that voice of reason that's not a parent and not her sister. But time will tell whether or not she actually takes that to heart. And it does make me a little worried about when she gets powers. But both of them, we saw with Anissa, which we might as well just jump into her. With her getting these powers, you know, she clearly doesn't agree with her father's passive voice about the whole 100 thing. So now that she's figured out that she's not crazy and that what happened in the bathroom was not isolated, I feel like she's going to run headstrong into danger a little bit. Do you know what I mean? She's taking this whole thing with the kidnapping very differently than Jen is. Jen is very much victimizing. And again, I'm not saying this is wrong, but she's very much taking on the victimization part of it, and, you know, with the self-medicating and just trying not to deal with it. Whereas Anissa is very much, you know, she's, you know, trying to distract herself with sex, but also she's very angry. You know, she wants to lash out and, like, get revenge, if anything. So I can see Anissa kind of initially being a little too headstrong and foolhardy, just because she feels like she might be a little invincible and she can finally put some fear on the other side. Whereas if Jen gets it, I feel like she's just going to be all over the place. You know what I mean? So with him saying to Lynn at the end that, you know, the girls are not kids anymore. They're old enough to understand this life, who I am, what I can do. I think we need to find a way to work with it. Well, obviously that talk's going to have to happen now, because at some point, I mean, I don't know how long. I don't know if they're going to plan to take the entire season for the kids versus, you know, the adults to find out about the powers, but I'm hoping that they don't drag it out for too long. And when that happens, there's going to need to be a little bit of schooling, you know, a little superhero school, and not just on how to use the powers, but Jefferson's going to have to talk to his daughters about the responsibilities that come with having abilities, and that it's not just a wanton, do whatever you want situation, which I feel like Anissa is going to be much more want to do before Jen. So that'll be really interesting if and when that happens this season. Just a side note, the mom being a neuroscientist, I think is very interesting. We did not know that. I think that's going to come into play at some point. Potentially, she might be someone who's going to help. I feel like her and Gambi are going to work together. I mean, they're at odds at the moment, and that was a great scene too between her and Gambi, arguing both sides of why vigilantism is good or bad. But I think that they kind of showed in that scene that her and Gambi are two sides of the same coin, really. They both care about Jefferson, but they just have opposing views as to how he should use his gift. But in the end, I think they both want what's best for him in the end. And so I think at some point, maybe mid-season, we're going to see these two working together, a neuroscientist plus an engineer of some kind. And I think we're going to get some really cool stuff when it comes to the girls, especially, because they're going to need outfits and suits and all that great stuff that comes with being a vigilante. And then I guess finally how it ended with Lala and his cousin. I mean, that family line's pretty much done. I think we all knew it was going to go there. As soon as Lala got incarcerated, I knew it was a wrap for him. He got really sloppy. You know, he's clearly very afraid. He knew he screwed up, but I also think that Lala was kind of to the point where he wasn't even sure why he was living this life anymore. You know, it's too much. He's getting shot with harpoons. He's got to worry about the cops on one side. He's shooting mamas on the other side. He's got Black Lightning coming after him. Like, I think Lala realized very quickly that life was no longer worth it. But unfortunately, you know, as it goes, you play with sharks and eventually you're going to get bit. And Tobias did not waste any time getting rid of him. So it'll be interesting. I think we're going to definitely get a lot of Black Lightning versus Tobias, and the question is, you know, when is that going to happen, and what's going to happen when that goes down? I am very interested to hear more about what caused their initial conflict in the first place. So I'm hoping we're going to get that in the next couple of episodes. Finally, just a little bit on Jefferson and Lynn. It is a bit sad, but watching that argument, you know, initially I do see both sides of that argument. I really do understand why Lynn does not want him living this life, but in the end, what she's asking of him is not really fair. He is, well, a metahuman in this world, right? He has these gifts. They're not going anywhere. He didn't ask for them, from my understanding, and he can't get rid of them. So for her to kind of ask him to deny himself of who he is and what he can do because she thinks it's unhealthy is not 100% fair. Understandable, but really not fair. And conversely, him just kind of, when he came home after, you know, the whole Lala thing, for him to come home and be like, well, the girls are older, you just have to deal with it. And her getting up and being like, no, I don't think so. It's her right as well to not want to live the life associated with, you know, living with a vigilante, right? I mean, it can't be easy. It cannot be easy. And even though it's clear that those two very much still love each other and that this is not a matter of love lost, but if you have some ideals, like in a real relationship, if you have ideals that are diametrically opposite, or you both feel very strongly about something, sometimes the only thing you can do is walk away, because if she's not willing to accept that this is going to be part of him, and he's not willing to deny that part of himself anymore, you know, then that's not going to work out as a relationship, at least not a romantic one in the long term. So I am actually perfectly fine with the two of them. If they can remain friendly and still have love for each other and, you know, work together. And especially, I mean, we'll see. I mean, she obviously doesn't know about the girls yet, but maybe with the girls coming into their powers, Lynn will change her mind, because she can't really divorce her kids. If they can keep a respectful and loving relationship, I actually would love to see that on TV, because we don't get to see a lot of examples on television of families where you've got a divorced mom and dad with kids that really have a healthy relationship, and it's still one that has love and respect and affection for each other. And I think more of those need to be shown, because not every divorced couple is in shambles. There were a lot of deep topics that were tackled in just 40-some minutes. Like, I had so much to talk about because they just jumped into so many things, and these were not light topics. This show is deep. This is deep. This is not a show that's going to let you turn your brain off for an hour, right? You're really going to have to deal with some stuff here, because they really are bringing it with both the real social issues and also the superhero issues. So, like, if this is episode 2, y'all, I don't know if we're going to have enough. I don't know if we're going to have enough stamina to make it through the whole season. And, like, looking at this, especially this episode with having 3 people die in this episode, 2 shot point blank, like, yeah, I don't see this ever. I don't know how we're going to get a crossover. I don't think it's possible to do a crossover with this show. It's just not possible. It's too dark. It's way too dark. Maybe Arrow, but anyways, I babbled on for a while about that episode, but it was really good and really deep, and it really got my mind churning. So what did you guys think of this episode? How do you feel about the show taking these really realistic and heavy topics and mixing it in with the tropes that they have in the superhero world? Do you think they're doing it well, or do you think it's a little too much and a little too heavy for you to just have a good old time with your show? Please leave your comments below. Let's have a discussion about it. You know I love chatting with you guys. And if you like this video, guys, you know I'd love it if you click that like button. And if you want to see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. Until next time, see ya.